welcome to another episode of Connections. Today, I will be speaking with a wonderful Canadian songstress, Alexa Ray. Hi, Alexa. So nice to see you.
Hi, wonderful to finally be able to meet you.
I know I've been following your career for several years, so it's so cool to be able to chat together.
Likewise.
So tell us a little bit. You are in Canada. Is that like where you're from? You were born in Canada. So yeah.
Born and raised. Yeah, I'm from Toronto. Yeah, all my life. Yeah, never moved.
Awesome. My brother, I think, is in Quesnel right now. So he still lives out there too.
Oh, wow.
So tell us a little bit. I wanted to go back and just start like when you first started listening to music. So do you remember like what was kind of the first music that you remember hearing?
Oh man. I mean, I've been listening to music all of my life.
Okay.
My mom was a really big, or is a really big fan of like classical music.
Okay.
So that's actually how I started. My roots are in classical. I trained to be an opera singer. I actually thought that I was going to be Met bound. And I think I was inspired because my mom would always play, like the greats like Maria Callas, Kathleen Battle, Cecilia Bortoli. And so I just remember listening to these gorgeous voices over the speakers, and my mom would be like doing the dishes or something.
Yeah.
And I would just see like the covers of these albums, and they're in these like gorgeous gowns and, just so beautiful and sound so beautiful. And so, I kind of just started copying them and that sound, and it kind of just started from there. So, I mean, that must have been when I was, like 3, 5 years old. And then from there, I started doing choir. I told my mom that, no, I really want to do this. So started taking voice lessons, and I just never stopped.
Now, do you remember your first ever performance on stage?
Um, I think the most memorable one, because I was part of a choir. So it's kind of hard to say because, I mean, as a choir, it's not really like a solo thing. So I did
Right.
lots of performing and touring as part of a choir. But I think my first solo performance was actually one that I put on myself. I think I was only 10 or 11 years old, and it was to raise money for, I think it had something to do with clean water for some villages abroad. And so I just remember, putting this concert together myself. It was me and somebody who was studying to be a pianist at the time. And, just really passionate about what music could do for others. So yeah, I think that was my first performance.
That's super awesome. How old were you?
I think it was 10 or 11.
That is awesome that you were doing that at 10. My goodness.
Thank you.
So do you remember then, like, obviously music meant a lot to you. Do you remember like what your party piece was? Or I don't know, do you still have a party piece where people's like, Alexa, sing, and you're like, okay, this is my go-to?
I think for a while it was actually Phantom of the Opera.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
So that was kind of my party trick, was after drinking maybe a little bit too much wine. Then I would go and, belt out these high, top C's and D's. So
That's impressive. You can do that though, after like just on a whim.
yeah. I mean, in my head, it sounded good, but again, that was after a few drinks. So maybe not so much for others.
I love that. So obviously you said you had this training in classical music. I think you were even at an opera studio, but did it like sit with you that maybe it wasn't fulfilling you totally as a creative artist?
Yes, I think after a while, because I went through, high school studying. I went to special high school for music, and then I proceeded to go on to university studying classical music. And I think it was when I finally graduated, I realized that I kind of felt like I was stuck in a box in a way. I had been so focused on trying to do it the correct way or the right way. And I think, especially in the classical industry, there's a little bit of this need for perfection. And with myself, I mean, I just felt like I could never be perfect, and it bothered me in a way. Um, and I just felt like my voice had more colors and was just a little bit different than, the other opera singers I was surrounded by. And that kind of fed my curiosity for, well, what else can my voice do? Or, where can I really take this? And so I started listening to more music, and I actually found that I was more passionate about film and trailer music. And so that's kind of how it transitioned from opera into what I'm doing now, which is a little bit more, it's still crossover voice because I'm doing a little bit of like pop and classical voice, but with huge orchestral arrangements and more electronic influences.
I think that's interesting though, because obviously we have this great standard classical repertoire, but we really don't know what those composers would have done now. And I think what you see is a lot of classical composers actually go into film music because,
Mm-hmm.
that's where they're going to be able to put this stuff out. So I love that you started experiment. Can you tell us like some of your first, was it songwriting first, or were you given material of different films?
Yeah, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now. I was approached by a trailer composer, and he had originally wanted just like atmospheric vocals, like oohs, ahs. Um, and then I kind of sent him my demo, and he's like, "Oh, this is fantastic. I'm actually wondering if you can put lyrics to it." And I was kind of like, oh boy, I've never done lyrics in my life. Like, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. So, I mean, I'll give it a shot. I'm always open to trying new things, because I was definitely more in an experimental phase anyway. So I was like, I'll try this. We'll see how it goes. I did it, and I was actually very surprised with myself that it kind of was a lot easier than I thought.
Mm.
And I think that also was a huge learning curve for me in realizing that I had more to offer than just reading notes on a page that I had been studying. Is I had more, I guess, gifts and talents than I even realized. Um, and so just seeing, all these bits and pieces, coming together, and yeah, I just continued to kind of nurture the lyric writing. And so yeah, 3 years later, that's kind of what I'm doing now.
So I had read something really interesting about you, and I'm kind of like very fascinated by the idea that as children we're so free and we do these things and then we kind of forget them. So I
Yes,
was reading about you that you actually like you used to like to write poetry and stuff, and then you
I
kind of got
did.
negative. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, when I was a kid, I shouldn't say kid. When I was probably in like middle school, I did used to kind of dabble in poetry, and I didn't always fit in middle school. So I kind of like, realized that other kids weren't really doing poetry or like doing these creative things. So I guess being a bit of a chameleon, I decided to kind of, okay, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to not fit in. So I
Yeah.
kind of, didn't nurture that talent, or, kind of thought, okay, maybe this is weird. I'm just going to stop this. And so, yes, now that I'm doing the lyric writing, it's just interesting to see that no, like what had started, years ago, and that was, I had kind of stopped thinking that it was weird, kind of has all come together now. So it's just interesting to see all of that.
Yeah, no, I think it's so cool how we then work these things from our childhood.
Yeah.
So was it Across the Seas that was your first single?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This was a very special project. I'd actually worked with Cove Music on this track. So Thomas Spencer was my producer, and I was actually had the opportunity to fly to Los Angeles, where I recorded the track with Jorge, who is my sound engineer, and it was just an unbelievable experience. So we did 3 tracks together, and Across the Seas was my first recording as Alexa Ray. um, and I'd actually just hit 1 million, I think, a few weeks ago. So
Wow.
it's just cool to see, 3 years later, how far, it's all come.
And was like I remember seeing like stuff for that music video, like you handmade your costume, like that was some real dedication.
Yes. So yeah, I had so much passion for that project. I remember I had this like kind of backstory for the character in this song, this Viking woman who's traveling across the sea, for a better life. And I wanted the song to, have that character in there. And so I was trying to look for costumes and I could not find anything. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to just create my own. So I think I broke like 3 or 4 needles trying to sew leather. So it was not easy. But yeah, it was a lot of fun putting together that costume.
And so from there, obviously, you started getting great response. And then I think you also had like a gaming channel. So how did that start too?
So yes, I mean, because a lot of the music that I'm doing is film score
Mm-hmm.
and game influenced, I really wanted to try to hit that audience. So I had also started streaming a little bit on Twitch for fun. So yeah, that's kind of how that started, just to try to, build up and connect with fans in a unique way.
I think that's super cool because my husband is like a big gaming fan and he'll
Oh
call
yeah.
me in and he'll be like, you should try singing this. It is quite cinematic, the music that they use in the games.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, they have full orchestral, yeah, scores. And I think what's interesting is that, I mean, a big passion of mine is trying to connect with listeners, and I guess spread the word of classical music.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that, I mean, a lot of people might say that, oh, I don't like classical music, but they actually don't realize how much classical music that they're listening to, because they don't realize that all of the films, all of the, even like in Netflix, all these movies and video games, they all have classical music. They just don't like recognize it as classical music.
Yep.
Um, so I guess that's also part of like the fusion that I have with what I'm doing now. It's pop, but it's also, um, as I'd say, like bridging the gap between the classical and the pop world, so that people understand, oh no, I do think that classical music is cool.
And I think there's something about putting it in that setting where it's just like part of a scene where it makes it more acceptable. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
they can relate to it as opposed to this
Yes.
is a performance that I want.
I think it's a lot harder. And that was one thing that when I was performing opera, I found it was almost like a wall there. It was really hard to connect with my audience, especially younger audiences.
Mm-hmm.
With the classical, I mean, dressed up in these huge costumes, it's not necessarily relatable, at least for the younger generations. I think with the class, what's hard with the classical industry is that unless you're studying, unless you're understanding the historic, like what was happening historically, during these times, then you have a bigger appreciation for the music and for these stories.
Yeah.
And so with the, what I'm doing now and with what's happening, with these like trailer music and film, is that all of a sudden we're telling these stories still in a classical way, but it's more relatable. And arguably, I do think that if like Mozart and Puccini and Wagner were alive in today's world, they were, what they all had in common in their day and age is they were pushing the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
They were inventing their own instruments. They were experimenting, and they weren't always recognized during their time periods as being great until much later. And so I do think that if they were composers today, they would be, in the film world and using all of these crazy electronic sounds. But that's just my that's just my guess.
Absolutely. I think there was, like you're saying, such creative geniuses that they would have wanted to not stay with. Even, I'm sure you did in your college experience, the theory rules that you have when you're writing, it needs to go 4, 5, 1 or whatever, and it can't have
Mhm.
too many leading tones in the voices. Like I think as they each kind of push that a little bit, like, oh, what if we
Yeah.
do have a double leading tone? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So it would have been really cool to see. And it's nice to see people like you kind of bringing everything forward. So tell us about From the Ashes. So that was like a complete collaboration.
So From the Ashes was with Adam Music
Okay.
Audio, which is a publisher, and I collaborated with Lisa Van Hel. And she is a female composer from the Netherlands. So it was a big honor to be able to work with her, just a fantastic composer. So she created all of the orchestral arrangements, and I top lined and did all of the lyrics and the voices for those songs. So I think there was 10 tracks in total.
And did you see like that being a complete story that you were trying to tell in From the Ashes?
Yeah, I think I I was going through a bit of a journey and was in a bit of a dark place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that album for me were just like little timbits and little reminders, of kind of getting through a dark time
Yep.
and how to kind of, well, rise from, ashes. And so, just uplifting and motivational ideas and music to help others along, in their journey, if they're going through a hard time.
Yeah. And you mentioned in the other one, it was kind of like the Viking princess. You do kind of have like this warrior. I don't know. When I get it, it's like female empowerment.
Yeah, a lot of my music is very like uplifting, motivational, get you out of bed, ready for the day type of music.
So from there, you've done a bit of experimenting with different writers. Now tell us about Fearless, because that was really your album.
Yes, this was a solo project with me, and then also in collaboration with Randall Germain. Another, I can't say enough about his work. He's just a phenomenal composer, so talented. And I just had so much fun collaborating with him, really pushing the boundaries of finding this real balance between like pop and electronic, but then also adding these elements of film score. So there was a lot of back and forth, trying to find that balance. And that album was really just about being yourself, whatever that looks like, and not letting, others have, a say, being unapologetically you. So that was kind of the theme behind that entire album.
And that's kind of like something you always keep with you is the no fear. You've shared some pictures of that, like as a personal.
I actually have it tattooed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up, I was actually bullied a lot. I never really fit in. I was always like a little bit different. And so I think being a social chameleon for so long, that album was kind of like, no, I found myself. This is me. I found like my sound. This, I know it now. And so it was kind of this affirmation for myself that, this is Alexa Ray. And I hope that in sharing this, that it inspires others, whatever they're going through, that they're not afraid to be themselves, again, whatever, that is, because there's beauty in being different and being unique. And every artist is different. So yeah, we have to celebrate it.
I think that's great. And in terms of like the voice, like you were mentioning, there's kind of boxes, right? So you have like your vocal type in opera and you have to kind of stick with that. So what have been some of the things that you've tried differently, since you can use it now with no right or wrong? What are some of the ways you experiment with your voice?
Yeah, I mean, for me, really the sky is the limit. I've never really, I think what's interesting is that like our voices have so much color. And in classical music, I always, in order to be classical, yeah, it's like this voice shape or it's this coloring. And now I don't even think about technique.
Yeah.
Which is so funny to say, because literally that was my life in university. It was like, oh, it's beat into you, like technique, technique, technique. And I think it was a great foundation. Technique is certainly important, but now when I sing, it's about what emotion do I want the listener to feel.
Yeah.
So I think it's a completely different type of connection for me. Is I want people to react to it. So, using more breath, and maybe it's more of like a scream than actually singing at points in times, but it's so that people react to it instead of, oh, this is such a beautiful note.
Yeah.
It's no longer, perfect. There's no right and wrong. So I feel like I can literally do whatever. And yeah, the sky is the limit.
Now, did you find like, were you always cultivating your belting side of it, or was that kind of something you had to
That's
learn?
all new.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not have a belt at all, literally until like even with university. And I kind of questioned it because I was like, yes, I can sing opera, but I wonder if there isn't something wrong with me, because like, how is it like all these other singers that have this belt? And so, yeah, I started strengthening my voice in different ways. And it wasn't easy, but, thanks to, the vocal training that I had, I kind of knew what to do.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it only helped me become more flexible so that I could really shift between, okay, if I'm going to belt or now I'm going to put it into opera, and being able to switch back and forth has just given me a different tool and color to be able to use in my music.
So would you say, I know that there's like a school in England, and I'm forgetting the name right now, but it was started by Stefania Passamonte, and they actually have a crossover program, which is so great. But for
I didn't
other
know
people,
that.
yeah, like it's so awesome because we don't really
Wow.
get this, right?
Yeah.
But what would you say like to someone that's in university, they want to finish their degree, but they're kind of struggling with that? Would you give them any like suggestions?
There are no rules. And for some people, I think that might be mind blowing.
Yeah.
um, Empower yourself with learning. Learning, is your most powerful tool, but there is no right or wrong. There's no one way to get to where you want to go, no matter what people say. And just keep believing in yourself. I think having the confidence in yourself is number one. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then you're not going to convince anybody else. So, you really need to focus on that. But yeah, going to school is important, but it is not the only way. And so be true to who you are and just stay in your lane. Because there's so much other talent, and it's so easy to get intimidated by others. And but keep your blinders on. You have your direction, and that's what makes you unique and special. You don't have to be looking in other lanes. Just stay focused on you and you'll get there.
That's some really good advice. So tell us, what are some of the other areas you want to do? Because obviously now you're a singer songwriter. What are some of the other things you'd like to explore?
I mean, I'm really excited for the road ahead and what I've been doing. So I just kind of want to see how far I can take it. I mean, I've really never had any formal writing training. A lot of this has just kind of been my emotional reactions when I write. So I would love to further, develop it, doing writing camps. And I think part of the fun in music and collaborating with others is just seeing where it goes. So, I would love to see, potential sync opportunities with like Netflix and movies and things like that. So, yeah, just continuing to write and see what happens.
And I think like even though you have maybe not formal writing training, when you collaborate with all those other people, you're picking up different skills from each of them. So
Yes,
it's like
absolutely.
the best way to learn, right? Is just work
Yeah.
with the best.
Well, and that's just it. And I feel like like in school and especially in university, we learn so much, but you don't do. It's not a
Yeah,
hands-on experience. So don't wait until you feel ready. Just dive into it. Just try it. Get messy, make mistakes. The best way to learn is through your mistakes. So if you never make mistakes, you never progress. So you just got to keep, trying it out and seeing what works.
absolutely. So tell us, you also have, in addition to everything you're doing with your music, you also have started a company for singers,
Yes.
and it's called Stage Nine Secrets. So tell us a little bit
Yes.
about your company.
So this actually started from a frustration when I was trying to shop for myself online and in stores. But this also probably happened about 3 years ago. I was nominated in the Hollywood Music and Media Awards. And like any female, it's like, oh my gosh, red carpet, what am I going to wear? So that's immediately where my mind went, because I just have a love of like fashion and being bold and making statements. So I started, searching for, the perfect gown. And I was so frustrated. I think I had ordered a couple gowns online. They all came back, like finally arrived after, weeks of waiting, and like sequins were falling on the floor. It, didn't fit. So just like really horrible experiences
Yeah.
shopping online. And then because it was in November, I only had available in store for Christmas, what looks like Christmas dresses. I was like, okay, well, that's not really what I need. And then, if it's not the gown stores at the malls, then it was like wedding dress shops. And then you're
Yeah.
wearing like mother of the bride dresses.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, enough. It can't be this difficult. So I decided to take matters into my own hands, and I started a company, which is Stage 9 Secrets. And while I was in Los Angeles, I had made partners with a few designers in the fashion district, and looked over all of the quality to make sure that it was, good, because that was my biggest concern, was quality, but also affordability. And I just realized that there was such a big need, and especially in the classical industry, that we do not have a service catered to us as artists. And not just the classical community, it can be, any artist who's looking for stage attire, but specifically in the classical realm, we go with gowns, which is a lot more formal than the average artist. And so I just realized that, wow, we are so limited, and our branding is essential, especially with social media and how we present ourselves. This is literally like a good chunk of, our, how we represent ourselves.
Yep.
And so I kind of realized this need, and so turned the online boutique into a artist-focused company. So while we do sell evening wear, I really wanted to make it in support of other artists. So I have a directory so that, artists in their journey, if they're looking to connect with literally anything, if you need information on like contracts, if you need information in the industry, what am I trying to say? Engineers, if you're trying to like create your actual music. So there's a whole directory section, so people can go and learn about the industry.
Awesome.
And then I also started a rewards program, and artists specifically get a discount. So just like if you were to go to, like Chapters or like a bookstore, and teachers get a specific discount, I was like, you know what? I want a place where artists actually get recognized as professionals in their industry and can actually get a benefit, because, these gowns are expensive. So I did start a rewards tier specifically for artists so that they can get lifetime discounts and rewards, just so that we can help support our arts, because this gets expensive fast.
It absolutely can. No, I think Joanna Forrest, who's one of my team members, I think she wore one of your gowns. Did you see, right?
Yeah, she
it looks so good.
Stunning. She looks stunning. I was so excited that she picked that gown, because the tulle on that gown is just like, it's incredible. And she looked incredible in it. So yeah, she made it look good.
And are there any other like crossover artists that you can maybe tell us that have worn it?
Yes, La Divas, which is an Italian singing group. They've also worn our gowns for a recent project in Italy. So
amazing.
Performing with orchestra. So yeah, it's just, again, it's very wonderful to see, how I can help other artists in their journey. Because again, I mean, it's hard as musicians, and being on stage, it's like you wear that gown and then you have to, try to make it work in other performances. You can't just wear one gown repeatedly. You have to have a whole wardrobe. So yeah, a lot of what I'm trying to do is make it affordable for us artists.
Absolutely. So I will link that to there. I know in the future, we already were talking about looking for a dress for me too. So it's such a great opportunity. So everyone check it out when you have your performance needs coming up. The other thing I wanted to discuss with you is, in addition to the wonderful original music you do, you also release great covers on your channel, which especially during this time is great because you still have new content coming. So what draws you to a cover? Like what elements of a song you're like, I really want to take this on myself?
Oh man.
Loaded question.
Lots of different things will kind of spark my interest in a cover. One could just be like how it fits in my voice. If I think that it's just like the perfect tone and really shows off my voice well. And then some of them are just, personal favorites that I've heard others do. And I just love the song so much that, I want to do a cover of it as well. And then I have tried to stay within a theme of them being within films or movies. So just to stay in line with, what I do. So a lot of them are from like TV and film.
Gotcha. So this has been so much fun chatting with you, Alexa.
Likewise,
finally.
I know.
So my last question would be for you, just like, who are you listening to right now? Who's on your Spotify playlist?
I think the biggest artist that I've been listening to right now is Fauzia, who is a Canadian artist, and she's more of a pop artist. I also listen to Aurora, I think is fantastic. I love her writing style and her lyrics, just beautiful imagery. So she really inspires me lyrically.
Awesome. I don't know either of those, so I'm going to go check them out.
Go check them out.
Do you have anything new coming out, you think, in 2022? Are you going to try to do another album or?
Yeah, I have lots of collaborations in the work. One of the more exciting projects I'm honored to be a part of is an epic women's album. I'm not sure when it's going to be releasing, but it features a number of incredible composers and singers in the classical and epic realm. So it also features Jennifer Thomas.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and Julie Elvin, who's done some video game soundtracks. So I'm really excited for that release. So I'll keep you posted on when we release it.
Absolutely. So I did say it was my last question, but now I have to ask about Jennifer Thomas because she's amazing.
Yes.
So you guys did Father, Can You Hear Me together?
Yes.
So tell us, how did you get her involved in that? I think maybe you knew each other before, or?
Yeah, so we've been following each other online for a couple of years now. And when Randall first gave me the demo of this track, he had a piano kind of playing in the background. And immediately I was just like, oh my gosh, any excuse to work with Jennifer Thomas because she's just incredible. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to reach out. We'll see if she's available because I know that she's always doing so many projects. And thankfully she said yes. So it was a huge honor to work with her, and she just really elevated the track to a new level. So yeah, if you haven't heard it, go listen because her playing is like off the charts.
Yeah, it's like an epic track. So definitely check that out. And then she also gave you a great piece of songwriting advice that you shared with us.
She's really helped me in my songwriting, which was you can't write without chocolate. And she's right, because anytime that I am stuck, in a section, I'm like, okay, I have like a mental block. I don't know, what to put here as like a word or a lyric. I just have a little bit of chocolate and all of a sudden it comes. So yeah, chocolate solves everything.
Love that. That's the perfect way to end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alexa. It was so fun chatting with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please go ahead and hit subscribe. We are planning to do at least one Connections episode and one new releases episode per month. And we also have a very special collaboration coming with Blueberry Musica on August 22nd. So stay tuned for more details. We know you won't want to miss it. Look forward to seeing you then.